I want to welcome or say hello to everybody. Appreciate you coming today. And my name is Lisa Austin, and I'm with an artist collaborative in Erie, Pennsylvania called Civitas. I also teach at Edinboro University of Pennsylvania, and I've been involved since 2013 with the Connect Urban Erie group, which you're going to hear from several of those people today. We're here today to talk to you specifically about the Erie Viaduct, which, like the last bridge, was actually torn down in 2019. Unfortunately, it wasn't saved, except for some people saved a few pieces. There are several of us who are speaking today. Again, I'm Lisa Austin. Roland Slade might be able to make a few comments later. He's one of the people that helped with the film short. Adam Trott, the architect, is also the president of the group, Connect Urban Erie. Janice Cole is our vice president, and then Michael Keys is actually a member of our city council. Erie is located in the northwest corner of Pennsylvania. A lot of people don't realize it's very close to Cleveland, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh. If you look on the right side of the screen, you'll see the city of Erie, and you see that the dotted dashes there represent the rail line, the very busy rail line that runs through the city, dividing it north and south. One of the concepts that we've been really focusing on is the idea of the necessity for connectivity within the human body is very similar to the necessity for connectivity in thriving cities. You need many ways to get from point A to point B. And in Erie, the Irish actually settled on the east side of town, not too far from the railroad tracks, actually on both sides, but mainly on the north. And they established a church, St. Anne's, right on East Avenue. Again, just 2 blocks actually from the railroad line. Unfortunately, as people walked along East Avenue or drove along East Avenue to the at-grade crossing over the railroad tracks, there were a number of crashes and deaths, and this led to a call for a bridge. After 20 years of effort, Monsignor Mcbride, who was the pastor of St. Anne's Church, was able to work with other Irish leaders to actually get the bridge, the viaduct, created and built and dedicated. Now, the bridge itself was located, again, on the east side of town, and it's shown here on a redlining map from the late 30s. And as has been previously discussed, the redlining sort of identified neighborhoods in which there were primarily, there was a racial component to advising disinvestment in those areas. So on the map here, you can see the worst areas to invest in were the sort of pinkish and yellow areas, again, surrounding the viaduct. And then if you look on the right of the screen, you can see in 2015, 80 years later, you'll see that the land values around the viaduct are the absolute lowest in the city because of, again, this generations of disinvestment. Unfortunately, again, just almost as soon as the viaduct was built, the area was immediately begun to be redlined. And this is the state of some of the homes. I mean, there's beautiful homes on the east side, but this redlining, really led to a lot of disinvestment. It also led to a disinvestment in the bridge. There was very little maintenance done on it after the 70s. And we'll hear more about that later on. When the bridge fell into this disrepair, it was deemed no longer fit for vehicular traffic, tractor trailers and so on. So it became a completely pedestrian bridge for about 8 years. And this was sort of an unintended consequence of closing it to vehicular traffic. It became sort of a destination for the east side, connecting the neighborhoods north and south of the tracks. This map shows you in the violet lines, the only areas that connect over the railroad tracks. They're either at-grade crossings, overpasses, or underpasses. In the center of your screen, you'll see the viaduct itself. And what happened was about 15 years ago, a highway was built immediately to the west of the bridge. and they also had a highway bridge. And so this sort of reinforced the sense among the city that the bridge wasn't really necessary. The viaduct, I mean, wasn't really necessary. I want to also point out these are just some of the East Side destinations that were sought after by people walking and biking over the bridge, and that if you don't want to walk along the highway, you have quite a trek to the east or west to get to another connection point. This is an aerial view showing you the viaduct in the violet there, and then the highway that was built to the west, and then some of the people that use the bridge. Again, these neighborhoods surrounding the viaduct are some of the very poorest in the country, some of the most diverse, very limited public transportation, and many of the people do not have a car in their family. They must walk long distances to get to, buy food, go to work, whatever. Erie was named in 2017 as the country's worst city for African Americans, and you can see that this was a part of a pattern of sort of neglect of this part of the city. And you can see that I'll show you a number of slides here of the people that are have been sort of ignored. And then one of the things that was happening was we actually had landscape architect and architects work up alternative plans of what could happen with the viaduct. We had animators and songwriters making, artworks to kind of celebrate the bridge. Some of the African-American leaders came out and spoke for the need to save the bridge. The NAACP was also involved. We actually went to Harrisburg to try to lobby our elected leaders. We brought in half a dozen experts to talk about this issue. We tried to hold we did hold a town hall because there was no public hearing on this issue. Michael Keyes is one of the people who will be speaking today, was part of that town hall. We had a number of local businesses that came out and talked about why it was important to save the bridge. And we actually had the lead consultant suggest that we really do need to have a hearing about it. He thought there was great potential in adaptively reusing the bridge. It was also framed as a social justice issue. It actually landed on the front page of the New York Times. And this is my last slide before I show you a quick video. And in this, you can see the post-viaduct kind of situation. Now that that bridge is down, the photographs show you the area that people must walk along. It's noisy, pollution, and it actually adds up to an extra mile round trip a day, which is basically like walking from Erie to Washington, D.C. over the course of a year. Currently, this is a route to school as well. Children are breathing fumes from 14,000 vehicles. And after what is the proposed $100 million expansion of the Bayfront roadway, they're going to also be increasing the traffic along this area. So the kids will be breathing another 10,000 vehicles fumes a day. So I'm going to the next slide here, and I've got a very short video for you to watch so you can hear directly from some of the people on the bridge.
We should save this bridge.
And save the East Ave Bridge.
Keep it. I don't think they should knock it down.
I should break the bridge down.
I wouldn't want no one to destroy it tonight.
Well, Leslie, save the East Side Bridge.
I'm trying to save the bridge. I think we should save the bridge.
Like, we need this bridge. Everybody wants this bridge.
Yes, everybody uses this bridge. Y'all need to keep it open.
I just think we should keep the bridge here.
You know, we out here, we're trying to save this bridge. We love this bridge. We don't want you to tear it down.
We need to bring this bridge back.
I don't believe it should be torn down.
So please keep the bridge open.
The Mcbride Viaduct was a bridge over the railroad tracks. The viaduct connected East Side Erie. The Red Line neighborhoods around the viaduct are some of the most diverse and impoverished in the United States. After decades of neglecting the viaduct, and after the construction of a nearby highway, engineers closed the viaduct to vehicular traffic. But removing traffic transformed the viaduct into a pedestrian and bike artery. Despite a front-page New York Times story, advice from national experts, and pleas by local leaders, city refused to hold a public hearing. Demolishing the viaduct cost $2.7 million, twice the price of stabilizing it for continued non-vehicular use. Since the demolition, Eastsiders, including school children, must walk along the highway and deal with noise, fumes, and dangerous intersections with thousands of cars, trucks, and tractor-trailers. Learn more at erieviaduct.com. Connect Urban Erie.
Well, thank you for watching that. And Adam Trott, you're up next.
Okay, thank you, folks. I'm going to go through quick here because we're running long. Thank you. My name's Adam Trott. I'm an architect. I'm president of Connect Urban Erie, along with other groups. I'm also in the American Institute of Architects. I'm going to just go through quickly what happened to the bridge physically. This is just a clarified language, as some of which was used in earlier discussions. The deck is the surface that the transports over top. The superstructure is the beams that carry the deck. The substructure consists of either piers between elevated decks or abutments between the what would be the hill or the grade and then the elevated decks. So that's what I'll be referring to as we proceed. So what caused the viaduct's deterioration? The viaduct is a reinforced concrete box beam bridge. It was built in 1971 to replace the original steel structure bridge that was built in 1937-38. And when they built it, then they just ignored it. They walked away from it from then on out. And neglect is why the bridge deteriorated. And the main cause is this picture. The storm drains were never cleared out. So they piled up with soot from the vehicles and trucks, and they eventually clogged. So clogging forced the water to find another way to get off the deck. And this is how it was supposed to work. There's a crown in the middle of the roadway, and then there's storm catch basins on either gutter on the east and west sides. And the storm drains are right near the seams between the deck portions because the piers are used to take the rain conductors down and discharge the rainwater on the street level below. So pretty simplistic system. However, when they neglected the storm drains and they clogged, the water looked for somewhere else to go, and the nearest place to get off there was the joint between the decks, the seams between the decks. So what happened is the water started to go down there, and the consequences are that they would eat away the joint between the seams, and then they would just continually wash over the beams that carried the decks. So it started to get into the concrete skin of this reinforced concrete structure. And so you end up with things like this. You get spalling concrete wherever the water would continually go to get out. This is an example of one of the piers, one of the smaller ones. This one's not in too bad of shape, but this is what was more common. And the white marks that you see on the pier, they mapped out all the areas where the concrete was either spalling or soon to spall. So they actually cataloged how much surface repair was to be done. However, they never thought to estimate what would it take to just restore the bridge for bike and pedestrian use. They only focused on either it's going to carry cars and trucks or we get rid of it. And that is what bolstered the case for saying, well, we have the highway bridge right nearby, so let's just demolish this bridge, get it off the books, and use the highway bridge. The problem is the highway bridge is horrible for bikes and pedestrians. And the Mcbride Viaduct was a haven for that crossing traffic. So our repair strategy shown here, clear out the storm drains, repair where any pieces need repair, which weren't that many. These storm drains were built like the cannon of a battleship. And then repair the concrete beams and the joints. The two sketches on the right show how the reinforcing is done inside the box beam. As you know, the outer edges of the box beam are in compression and tension, so that's where all the steel rebar is put. And when the water was starting to get into the concrete, it would get between the steel and the concrete on the edge, and it would spall it. And that's why you get what we got today, or back when the bridge was still here. So our strategy was, the first thing to do is to stop deterioration. So it was open the storm drains, fix the joints, and coat the exposed areas of the beams and piers to stabilize it, to stop the deterioration, and then get the money to finish the repair. And we felt that that was not too hard of a lift, because the cost to do that was pretty similar to the cost of the eventual cost of tearing down the bridge. And they do it all over the country. These pictures are examples of just that kind of repair. Some of these are even worse than what we had, and it's done all the time. So our strategy: fix the drains, repair and seal, and fill the potholes on the deck, and then you stabilize the structure for use. This is the detail of the budget. We consulted with a bridge repair contractor out of Pittsburgh called Swank, and to make sure our numbers were reasonable, and we even padded them to make sure that no one could criticize our suggestion. And this is the two-phase. The left side is to stabilize it for 1.35 million. And then the right side is the permanent fix and skin corrections, replace a few steel rebar pieces for 1.6. So the total of our budget was a little over 3 mil. And we would have 3 to 5 years to raise that money. But we had a whole bunch of contradictions to the City Hall and PennDOT rationalization of their budget. And we proved over and over again that they were misleading the public on what it would take. And that is why we pushed for a public hearing to get this all out and on the public record. And unfortunately, we were blocked. The money for stabilization was already out there, and we just needed to then divert other funds to do the long-term restoration. So these were suggested ways to raise the rest of the money. Now, it's important to note that when we were doing this effort, the infra grant program was what was active at the time. Today, as we're meeting here, the Invest Act is a similar program to help repair infrastructure, and that's being debated right now in Congress. There's a lot of details to that. Unfortunately, there was long-term planning for the region that actually expected that the Mcbride Viaduct would remain and contribute to being a catalyst to an industrial resurgence area right where the viaduct is. And they just ignored that also, because a few people at City Hall just had it in their head, we're going to tear this bridge down no matter what. As an urban planner, the purple area clouded is where the bridge is. The orange stripe going north of that is East Avenue, which was a former business central corridor for the east side. It was heavily populated with Irish back when it surged up into prominence. And since then, the population was getting replaced by minorities, new Americans. So City Hall just turned their back on the whole area. These viaduct projects, this is the Philadelphia Rail Park, which is a repurposing of the Reading Viaduct, which is kind of Philadelphia's version of the High Line in New York City. These projects are moving forward, getting all the funding they need, and they're successful. We just wanted to do the same thing in Erie. We had all kinds of visions on what we could do with it. This was bike pedestrian area of refuge designed for the north end that would connect the bridge to East Avenue. All these efforts were ignored because there were a few people that just wanted it down, and they had the authority to just muscle it through. This view is looking north. When you're on the bridge and you're looking north at East Avenue, the tower on the right is the St. Anne's Church that Lisa referenced earlier. And finally, what's happening that's even worse, they're looking to pump up the central Bayfront corridor area to serve future development on our precious Bayfront. That's going to double the car traffic vehicle count from currently 16,000 cars up to 29,000 or more. And unfortunately, that means when that gets bumped up, all that induced traffic load is going to show up on the east side where we are now missing our bridge. And so what is currently a 14,000 or more count per day of vehicles, that's going to jump up to 25 to 29,000. So the trek of these people are going to be even worse than they used to be.
Janice Cole, our Vice President, is next.
Good afternoon, everyone. And Lisa, thank you for asking me here. I am the Vice President, and along with Adam and Lisa, I have really enjoyed being here. What brought my interest to this project before the viaduct was taken down was the East Side. I was born and raised on the East Side. I am a senior citizen, and I've always loved the East Side. And that bridge was a way I always traveled rather than go cut through the city or go over the Bayfront Highway. I've always enjoyed that bridge. And now you see a lot of times they said, breathe. If you would ask you right over that bridge, it just gave you such a wonderful feeling. And what I like most about that bridge, even when the people were driving, it was just kind, and you see people walking along the edge. But after they took the track off the bridge, I enjoyed seeing the new Americans, the children going to school, not just high school children, grade school children. This was a way they could freely walk, they could push their strollers, they rode their bikes, and those who were less fortunate, they pushed their shopping carts. And it was just a nice bridge for the people to cross, and it gave you just a warm feeling, a beautiful structure. As you look away from the highway, you come up on that going east toward 12th Street. Just the structure of the bridge was just magnificent. But what struck me most, as I say, are the people on that red line area. And I hate to say it like this, but there's no way. It's like the city didn't care. Not the city didn't care, the city doesn't care. The last thing we had in that area that was brought to us and we enjoy is Walmart. Nothing has happened to make that east side any nicer since Walmart was built. Well, we've had, and there's nice neighborhood centers that come over, people that serve those centers that come over across that bridge. There's churches of all kind. There's a Roman Catholic church. There is Black churches. There's the New Americans celebrating, and that's a nice walkway. And I was just glad, and I will continue to do whatever I can for this organization, because it's about grassroots people and those who cannot be heard or spoke for. That's what keeps me on this. I enjoy it, and I just hope to remain with this. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Adam.
Thanks very much. We're going to ask Michael Keys to share his screen now, if you would. Councilman Keys, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. First, I'd like to say that the East Avenue Bridge, as we referred to it, was a magnificent specimen of architecture and infrastructure. 1,100 linear feet of steel and concrete. It was really a magnificent structure when it stood. I got involved with Connect Urban Erie CPR, when I realized that, you know, there was no safe route for the kids to go or for people to transverse our city from the north to the south. And that if the bridge went, that means that our pedestrians and our bicyclists would have to ride next to an actual highway to travel through that part of town, and that was the only other route within a couple of miles. And so the highway has been known for being unsafe, and we've had accidents and fatalities on parts of that what they call so-called parkway. And so for the safety and for just the cause of that, it was more practical to keep the bridge than to spend millions of dollars to tear it down. It was like, if you went to the top of the bridge, there's no traffic in the middle of, you know, a really heavy urban area, no traffic, no sounds, no sights. It was almost like a place of Zen, or a place where you would almost have like a spiritual experience. It was beautiful at the top of the bridge. And one of the reasons I'm a sitting city council person in the city of Erie right now, when we were fighting to save the bridge, we were short one vote on city council to push forward to have a hearing and to possibly save the bridge, and we lost by that one vote. And inevitably we sued the city, the county, the city and the state and the Department of Transportation, and ended up losing. But it shows how, as far as, you know, one of your things was how race plays into this, is that nobody cared that it was going to put more people at risk, that more people were going to have problems with particulate matter, that they were going to be forced to walk along a busy highway, and that it was absolutely some of the worst things we could have done for some of our marginalized people. And so moving forward, you know, I want to be the voice that, you know, that infrastructure shouldn't be weaponized, as one of your presenters also talked about, and that we need to hear the voices of all the people, and that the voices of the people should matter at all levels. And so I'm here to be an advocate for those people. And I'd just like to thank you for having me.
Thank you, Michael, for the perspective, and thank you, Janice, as well, and Adam. Janice and Michael particularly for the perspective of the lived experience of that bridge in the neighborhood there in Erie, Pennsylvania. We will take a little bit of time for questions if there are questions.
So one of the interesting things that connects the Talbot Avenue Bridge with the bridge in Erie is the fact that for many years it was also disinvested in and neglected by the county, to the point where it was closed multiple times. And it would take a much longer presentation to go into all of the issues surrounding the various closures and fights to keep it open, fights to close it. So I'm very intrigued by the parallels between the multiple community responses in Erie and in Silver Spring and perhaps other places. And maybe there's an opportunity at some point moving forward to develop this stream of thought into something that takes space at one of the conferences, or perhaps even in the journal.
This is Lisa. David, I love your idea, and I want to piggyback on that just a little bit in reference to Michael Kimmelman's recent article in the New York Times challenging architects for being involved in building prisons and designing and building prisons. In other words, what's the role of the profession? So I would ask this body, what is the role of engineers and city planners and urban designers in what's their responsibility to first do no harm, to be attentive to things like this? One of the reasons this bridge was torn down in Erie is because people who understood the damage we're unwilling to challenge the momentum of the power elite, the status quo. And so I'm very interested in hearing anybody's thoughts on those issues.
I have a couple of questions on the chat about, are there any plans in the city or among the activists to either build in the future or push for a new viaduct, a new pedestrian route in that area of town?
Lisa, I can respond to that. We are working on the design of that replacement bridge that we want to propose, and we would make it take a lesser footprint than the existing one to help sell the idea. And a couple of things which are very poignant right now, the INVEST Act being debated in Congress right now is a stimulus act to recover from the economic that we took a hit from for COVID, kind of like the way the ARRA was helping us out of the 2008 recession. And another thing is, to Lisa's point about engineers and architects and planners, AIA just a week ago issued a statement that called out all members of the American Institute of Architects to be remorseful about the way architects were involved in all the social injustice projects that have happened, and to call us out that we have to stand up and not let that happen anymore if we're going to be architects that champion social justice. So there are some trade reactions to what's going on right now.
Can I comment quickly?
Please do.
Since the viaduct has been removed, the bridge has been removed, PennDOT has realized that they have caused the situations that I was referring to earlier. So now the state is undertaking new studies to try and figure out how to get people safely through these neighborhoods now that the bridge is gone, and realize that their alternative is not safe and it is not an optimum way of traveling through town next to a highway. And so that may be our biggest shot of maybe having something else there to replace it. But they have realized that they have harmed the community, but it was after the fact.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Roland Slade, Media Director of Connect Urban Erie, formerly Erie CPR. I would like to thank Lisa, Adam, Miss Janice, and Councilman Keys. Even though the viaduct is gone, we are still fighting redlining by opposing a Bayfront highway plan. To keep traffic moving, engineers want to build an underpass, highway-style exits, and roundabouts wide enough for tractor-trailer traffic to drive side by side. Already, 80% of Bayfront drivers are bypassing the city. PennDOT changes will double waterfront traffic. Instead of $100 million highway infrastructure, we need a boulevard for people driving cars, riding bikes, and walking. An 86-foot wide tree-lined Bayfront Boulevard can handle 4 lanes of cars, 2 bike paths, and 2 walking paths. A new linear park with pathways on the bluff could link neighborhoods at the top of the bluff down to the waterfront. These connections would increase economic development. By creating a community benefits agreement, both new and long-time residents of the East Side will benefit. And for just $6 million, we can build another viaduct reconnecting East Avenue for pedestrians and bike traffic. If you would like to learn more, visit our website at www.connecturbanerie.com.